All right, so welcome everybody to Lessons from the Field. As you know, this is a series of interviews we do with a diverse array of guests, all who have a common thread, and that's a passion for pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And today we're really fortunate to be interviewing Dr. Mark Gregg. Mark is a graduate of our PharmD program, the first PharmD class that graduated in 1988. And I know there's a lot of illustrious alums that we have from that class. And then Mark went on and did a residency both at UIC and in what was the Westside VA at the time, now the Jesse Brown VA. So he finished that in 1989. And Mark is now Director of Ambulatory Pharmacy Management at Northwestern Medicine for the Physician Network, and I'm sure he'll tell us a lot more about that. So we have a series of questions we'll ask Mark that will help us elucidate some insight for our students on his career and his experience. And of course, that'll also benefit all of our alumni and friends who might be listening. So Mark, first of all, thank you so much for being on today. I guess maybe if we could just start off with you, give us a kind of a brief overview. I know it's been a number of years since you graduated, and you've got a lot of experience in that time period. But if you could kind of summarize some of that for us, so we know.
No, I'd love to. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And just to start off by saying, I knew that I wanted to be a pharmacist since I was a sophomore in high school. I applied to one college of pharmacy. At the time, Illinois only had one college of pharmacy, and it was the University of Illinois at Chicago College of Pharmacy. My career in pharmacy really began working at a progressive community hospital located in the western suburbs of Chicago. I worked there as a pharmacy technician from roughly 1985 to 1988 while I was going through pharmacy school. And what I really valued was the fact that I worked on primarily a satellite pharmacy, and that was a pharmacy located at a hospital units that we served critical care. We served 4 other units. I learned how to interact with nurses, physicians, physician residents, other pharmacists, patients. It was just a tremendous experience, and it really helped me structure my time going through pharmacy school, maintaining work-life school balance. Then I went on, when I finished my PharmD in 1988, I had a variety of different practice sites that I was exposed to, and I really needed that extra year to help hone what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I applied and I was selected to be a VA resident. I spent half my time at the Jesse Brown VA and the other half at UIC Hospital, where I was able to function as a practicing pharmacist, but I still had the supervision of a trained preceptor to guide me along. And during that residency time, don't tell anybody, Dean Schumacher, but I also worked part-time at that progressive community hospital that I had done my pharmacy technician work at. So I was getting exposure to, let's say, an academic environment, as well as actually having to practice out in the real world. When I was done with my residency, my first position was at another progressive community hospital located in the far south suburbs of Chicago. And during that time, I did identify, I had a clinical practice. I served a variety of different patient care units across the hospital. I wanted to go into some form of management. I was promoted to become, let's say, the clinical coordinator of the area. Then I got the bug. I wanted to be a pharmacy director. So I went on to become a pharmacy director of a small niche community hospital located in the western suburbs. And during that time, the pharmacy benefit management world was really evolving. I applied for and I was selected to be a clinical pharmacist on a product development team with CVS Caremark. That was back in 1996. So I spent the next 7 years with CVS Caremark, kind of working my way up through the ranks. And I had the privilege of helping to form the CVS Caremark on First National Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee. did some really other like cutting edge things that really focused on physician education, patient education, and that really helped me for my subsequent career. I left that organization to run and be the general manager of an outbound call center that was basically the Remicade hotline, the Remicade benefit investigation hotline. I was functioning in a non-pharmacist role, functioning as primarily a business person. The benefit investigation world is very competitive. We lost our largest client, unfortunately, and I had the displeasure of having to lay off 130 people.
Oh my gosh.
Then I found myself needing a job. Then I went to go work for a community health department, a county health department. I worked there for 2 years. Then a colleague at Advocate reached out to me to say, hey, Mark, there's a position available that has your name written all over it. It was an academic detailer position. And basically an academic detailer is a phrase that was coined by Jerry Avorn out of Harvard University, where basically a physician, pharmacist, or a nurse uses evidence-based medicine to help educate prescribers on how to properly use medication. I spent 8 years with Advocate Aurora on their population health management team. Then I was recruited to come here to Northwestern to help establish a population health management pharmacy program. And I've been with this organization for roughly 6.5 years now.
Wow, that's quite a run. Thank you for going over that with us. So much great experience there. Yeah, and the academic detailing thing is really interesting too. We a few years ago started a pretty big academic detailing program here.
With Mary Moody.
Right, exactly, yeah, and it's going very well. So, but you were one of the pioneers in the area. A lot of our students, especially, will ask about kind of more the nitty gritty of people's jobs, like what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis? What are the major things that you're working on? So maybe in your current position, you could just tell us what that involves in a little bit more detail.
I'd love to. And everyone's position is going to be quite a bit unique, no matter what your title is. And when I came to Northwestern, there was basically no presence per se in ambulatory pharmacy. So I was asked to create a program out of nothing. And each organization has its own unique chemistry or unique needs. So I roughly spent the first 3 to 6 months here at Northwestern doing an assessment of, where are opportunities to get involved. And a lot of it was connecting with people. And my joke now is that the work I do, the work my team does, is a lot of dot connecting. Northwestern Memorial Healthcare is a health system of 11 hospitals. And we're coming together more and more as a true academic medical center health system. Mm-hmm. So my work is quite diverse. It spans the gamut of true population health management, meaning we're an accountable care organization. We have about 400,000 lives that are in some type of at-risk contract or pay-for-performance contract. So with those contracts come various payer or insurer quality measures, and my team focuses on the medication, vaccine, other therapy, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, diabetes related quality measure performance. And what that's translated into is we have a group that works our Medicare Advantage monthly reports. Medicare Advantage is a supplement program that patients can sign up for to supplement their Medicare Part A and B benefits, and they can choose that as it's like a type of managed care plan for Medicare. And what we'll do is we'll get monthly reports that identify 5 measures. We do a deep dive into our electronic health record. And then we may reach out to a patient regarding medication adherence. We may reach out to a prescriber to prescribe a medication, a statin usually, if it's indicated for the patient. The other bucket is pharmacist presence in ambulatory care. And we currently have pharmacists that are embedded in primary care practices, cardiology practices, and our Northwestern Medicine Specialty Pharmacy also has pharmacists embedded in women's health, primarily fertility, neurology, psychiatry, gastroenterology, rheumatology. There are other like subspecialty clinics as well, like transplant, where there's a pharmacist that's involved. And the reason why the pharmacist is involved is that our physicians realize that taking care of patients is very complicated, and they value having a drug therapy expert there to provide a high level of care within that practice. With that, we also have a team of pharmacy technicians that assist with patient medication affordability and access. And these technicians work very closely with our ambulatory care coordinator team. Ambulatory care coordinators are nurses and social workers that are either embedded in a physical practice, or they support a series of physicians and practices in order to help patients navigate through this complex myriad of healthcare. And they focus primarily on making sure the patient gets their appointments, that if they have affordability issues, transportation issues, food insecurity, other social determinants of health, that they're able to walk patients through that process. And then the final aspect of my role, or bucket, if you want to call it that, is a lot of the work is related to revenue cycle management, meaning how much are we acquiring a medication for? Are we billing appropriately for the medication? And then are we being reimbursed? So my role will then take me down along the lines of biosimilar utilization, equally effective, lower cost therapies, anywhere where we can maximize the value of the healthcare dollar spent, both for our patients as well as our payer partners.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Your role, it like as I hear you speak, sort of transition from more of the traditional hospital practice to more ambulatory care. And I think I saw in your profile that your residency was focused in ambulatory care as well. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm very thankful about from being a VA resident, where the leadership team basically allowed me to customize my residency to meet like my future needs. I have to give credit to my psychiatry preceptors. When I was at UIC in the VA, I was able to spend time in at least 3 ambulatory psychiatry clinics during that time. I was able to spend time in ambulatory primary care. And really, what was significant for me as well is that in the VA model, pharmacists are allowed to function as mid-level providers. So I'm not ashamed to say I was the doctor for 200 patients. You know, heaven forbid, you know, I'm the doctor for 200 patients. We always had an attending physician we could report to, but basically we were the ones managing the patient's lipid, hypertension, asthma, you name it. It was a chronic disease clinic. But what was really helpful for me is that I saw patients every week. Meaning over the course of 52 weeks of my residency, I saw that if I initiated a therapy, stopped a therapy, made an adjustment, ordered a lab test, that I saw how the patient responded. And that really helped me in the future to be more confident with making a recommendation and assuming responsibility, because once the words go out of your mouth to a prescriber, 99% of the time, they're going to act on the direction you give them. So it was just a truly great experience to be able to have that direct patient care responsibility underneath my belt.
Yeah, that model, the VA model, is one that I wish was emulated everywhere. But I guess kind of getting to my next question then, as you've advanced through your career, how have you continued to expand your knowledge and expertise? That you've done so much, and there's so much new information that comes out all the time. What's the trick or the magic?
In my role, and I'm not ashamed to say, over 34 years of being a pharmacist, I've had to be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I've had to remain a generalist. And I'm not demeaning the importance of doing, let's say, a specialty residency or focusing on a unique care area. I knew myself back 34 plus years ago that I was going to remain a generalist. Granted, psychiatry, adult internal medicine, antibiotics were an area that I was very much interested in, but I knew I had to remain a generalist. So what I've done over the course of my career was, don't laugh, but, read my journals, read my journals.
Yep.
And also, subscribe to a series of different summary publications and what have you to really keep a pulse on what's important. all of my roles have always revolved around, what are other organizations doing? Where are the needs within our own organization? And can I apply a best practice that another organization has published or described to meet the needs of our own organization? So for me, the other key when you move into more of a leadership role is to surround yourself with highly competent individuals. I'm the first person to admit I don't have all the answers. I'm more of a collaborator, and what I'm very thankful for is I've got a team of phenomenal individuals where they're the stars, they're the dream team. Where I'm not ashamed to say, hey, like, can you tell me about this, or let's collaborate on this project. Because really the success in population health and in life is our ability to collaborate and work with other people. I don't have all the answers. Dr. Schumacher, I'm assuming you don't have all the
Oh,
answers.
absolutely not.
So the whole idea is that we have to collaborate together, in order to come up with a product that's going to be much more in tune with meeting the needs of the organization than what we could come up with individually.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's great advice for everybody. While we're on the subject, and you mentioned how important your residency was to kind of, your confidence, but also probably your entire career. I'm going to skip a little bit into
Sure.
questions, but was there other experiences or scenarios or parts of your training that really impacted you in that same way? And what were those?
And I guess I'm going to answer generally, then offer some specifics. I've been richly blessed over the course of working through my role as a hospital pharmacy technician through my current role, where I've had people that went out of their way to help mentor and coach me and to take a personal interest. And what I mean by that is that when I worked as a hospital pharmacy technician, I felt like I had a family. I had a family of individuals to support me. When I worked, like, with literally every role I was at, I was surrounded by very highly competent individuals that, like, I could ask for feedback. Hey, how could I improve myself? How could I do better? How could I be a better clinician? How could I be a better manager? How could I be a better leader? And I really have to give credit back in my first hospital I worked at, and Mike Montwell, if you're listening, Mike Montwell was one of my first managers. And Mike Montwell, at the time, he had his management team literally read every Stephen Covey book.
Oh, wow.
So I know I'm dating myself, but going back to, like 30 years ago, like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Principle-Centered Leadership, and then, First Things First, Quadrant 2 Time Management. And
they're all still bestsellers.
Right. I think there were phenomenal texts. We read other books, 1 Minute Manager, other management books. But probably the most important thing that I learned over the course of my career in life was the importance of maintaining work-life balance. Every career change that I made was an informed decision. I didn't willy-nilly wake up one day, say, gee, I want to run a benefit investigation hotline. There were a series of circumstances in my life saying, hey, I think I'm really enjoying being a manager. I think I'd like to try to run a business. So I did that for a period of time. And always going back to leveraging on where my roots were. I believe in life that our experiences, one experience builds on top of another. Throughout the course of my work career, I've had managers who I highly regarded. There were other managers where I would say to myself, if I was in that role, I probably wouldn't be doing some of the things you're doing. So part of the life experience is you learn from the best and then try to avoid what the perception is of not having a quality or an approach that may not be most effective, because most of our work is working with people, and I'm very much a relationship person. I value relationships. And, Glenn, what we were joking about was how we knew each other from like 35 years ago. I've still been able to sustain relationships from 35, 40. I've got great school friends that we've been friends for 50 years, so part of it is life is all about relationships, and especially in the pharmacy world in Northern Illinois, that it's a very, very small world. Either we're going to work with someone, work for someone. It's just a very small world in pharmacy.
Yeah, wow. A lot of great tips and advice here. One thing that you said that really resonates with me is your early experience, even when you were in pharmacy school at the hospital. And I can tell that, that experience is carried with you your entire career. And I think for a lot of people, that's true. It's like, your early work experience and people that you worked with, they really have a big impact on you.
Yes.
So,
especially investing that time in an individual.
right. Yeah. Mark, another thing I wanted to ask you, obviously now in your career, you have assumed I can tell a very high level leadership position and some of the other positions you've been in. And you're one of the first people we've interviewed that has props. So I really want to give you kudos for that too. But some of those props demonstrate how you've built your own leadership skills through your own self-education. But are there things that you wish you would have gotten earlier in your career or even in your education, say even at UIC, around leadership or leadership skill development?
No, I love it, and thank you so much for asking. And I think one of the things that's so important now coming out is the importance of being able to demonstrate return on investment for pharmacist value. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of work on, and our team has been doing a lot of work on here at Northwestern, also at Advocate in my previous role, is to demonstrate both process metrics as well as outcomes metrics. The process metrics are great. How many widgets can you process? But really the true outcomes metrics that a vice president or senior vice presidents can be looking at is to say, what incremental value will be the addition of this pharmacist in this role provide to the organization? And every organization has a different philosophy of what those outcomes should be. Some of it may be something as simple as, we want you to help offload our physicians so they can see more patients. The other is, we want to increase our physician retention and recruitment by offering team-based healthcare. What's the patient's likelihood to recommend score? We want to have additional team-based care to improve patient satisfaction score so we can attract more patients into our number of covered lives through the plans that Northwestern contracts with. Others are more hard and fast. How many more patients can be started on continuous blood glucose monitoring for diabetes, for example? Can we get more patients to have an A1C of less than 8 or 9? Can we get their blood pressure under control? Can we get their lipids under control? Can the pharmacist achieve a 5-star rating for our Medicare Advantage plans? All of those are really hard outcome metrics that once we're able to say, we're able to impact this and this measurable area that results in dollars. Unfortunately, by being able to demonstrate that value is really where you're going to get the attention of senior leadership, and you're going to be able to grow your program. The other things too that I think were very important that I'm glad to see out of many of the graduates coming out now is really mastery over the Microsoft suite of Office offerings. Email, MS Teams, Excel, PowerPoint, Word. And to develop effective communication skills, because regardless if you're interacting with a patient, interacting with a physician, interacting with other members of the healthcare team, executive leadership, you really have to be an effective communicator.
Yeah, wow. Mark, a lot of your responses in this interview have been loaded with great advice for our students and others. I wanted to ask you now, though, at the end,
yeah.
A little bit more, specifically, you mentioned work-life balance, other tips for success in your career that you might want to pass on to people, or maybe advice people have given to you that you might want to then share.
No, I really appreciate that, and thank you so much. One of my 5 favorite lines is a Clint Eastwood line, a man's got to know his limitations. So, I think if anyone has a trusted confidant or a mentor, I think it's really important for someone to have a confidant, a mentor, someone who's willing to provide, advice, constructive feedback, to praise you when you deserve praise, to offer you feedback And the individual has to be receptive to that feedback, because if someone is doing their best to give you constructive feedback and you become defensive, well, you're not going to hear what that person says. You're not going to be able to make the necessary changes in your approach or your conversation style or what have you to be successful. So really having that mentor, I think, is very important, and also to identify areas that you can improve on. That if you're deficient in a given area, let's say a pharmacy practice, well, it doesn't hurt to bone up on that area, or spend additional time studying, taking additional classes, like observing a subject matter expert in that area. The other life advice I would really offer to any other like student is how you come across as an individual. Normally, when I'm meeting with pharmacy students or residents, what have you, I'll usually reinforce the importance of coming across as a genuine person, and the importance of building relationships. That many of the physicians that I've worked with over the course of my career is, we came down to becoming friends. We were on a first name basis. I respected them for what they did. They respected me for what I did. And then what kind of made the work fun was we would talk about all kinds of abstract things, like, what do you do for fun? What are your personal interests? Tell me about your kids. And as I've gone through different phases of my life, like I found it easier to relate to other people. Some of the meetings I would attend, for example, I was at the phase when my sons were becoming Eagle Scouts. So I would have doctors come up to me and say, "Hey, Mark, how are your sons doing on their Eagle project? How close are they?" Then we would talk about their kids' Eagle projects, what have you. Then the next phase was like, what colleges are your kids looking at to go to school for? And it's just the ability to relate to people. And what I found out is, of course, we're busy professionals. We want to give the physicians the answers they want, but there's really nothing wrong with showing that human side of who you are. When it comes down to a relationship, someone wants to say, Mark's son is studying to be an Eagle Scout. My son studied to be Eagle Scout. We have some type of common bond. And really, when you achieve that common bond, if it's music, if it's sports, if it's another type of phase of your child's lives, it's just another way to help engage that person.
Yeah. Wow. That's great advice. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Is there more?
No, I was just going to say that I'm having a flashback to the VA days. I like military history a lot, and I would be introduced to new patients. Like, let's say you're starting July, you're the new resident, you're picking up where another resident had been, and my first question I would ask the vet was, "Tell me what you did in the service." And they were pretty surprised when they would rattle off what they did, that I could come back with a direct question that basically showed I knew what I was talking about, or I could relate to their scenario. And then after we established that bond, they started calling me doc or calling me whatever, but it was a lot. It may seem silly, but once you're able to establish a relationship with someone or personal interest, they tend to be more receptive. They have a higher level of trust in you. And then when it comes to making a recommendation or being frank with, I'm having this side effect, this medicine isn't working, I can't take it anymore, they're more likely to be upfront and honest with you than if they didn't have a relationship with you.
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. Well, Mark, thank you so much. This has just been fantastic. A lot of really great advice here. I know that our students and early graduates and alumni that may be listening get a lot out of this. So kudos to you for, a great career. And we're really proud of, all of our alumni, but you've really done some great work. So thank you.